There we go. That is
Hey.
Dylan Silbernagel. I'm Gary McGowan, and we're talking about new hats. Can you tell?
I love that you didn't bring one back for me, Gary.
Well, you don't know that I didn't,
Hey,
but I
that's
didn't.
true. Spoilers.
Yeah. Funny. Yeah. So where did I go? What did I do? I was spent the last week outside of Canada, actually, and down in Orlando. We both, Dylan and I, belong to Keller Williams and the annual convention, first in-person convention in 2 years, Dylan. And I got to tell you, it was so good, not only to see people, but to be in a hot place, to walk outside with a t-shirt on and stuff. It was so good, man.
As somebody that was unable to go, I can say it looked really good from afar. The weather looked amazing. You guys got to see one of my favorite speakers, and Sean Acker. I'm really bummed that I missed that one. Yeah, man. Tell me, how was it?
Him specifically, if you don't know him, so here's a guy that went to school, and I love it. If I went back to school, this might be what I do: study happiness. And that's what he does. And just, why are some people happier than others? And it was really, really cool. Also, happiness in the workplace, happiness at home, perhaps more importantly. And there's some real simple things that everyone can do every day to, brighten someone's life. And he talked to us about, for almost 2 hours, to, a room full of 10,000 people. And I got to tell you, huge standing ovation afterwards, Dylan. And if you don't know him, get his books. Start with his TED Talk. It's only 15 minutes, and I promise you this: you will think differently about how you treat others, and perhaps, maybe more importantly, how you treat yourself, Dylan, as you might know. Good stuff.
Yeah. Great stuff. And a reminder that happiness is at the center, and everything else revolves around it. Success revolves around it. It's not the old way of thinking of like, when I'm successful, I'll be happy. No, it's the other way around. Be happy, and it will lead to your success.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Yeah. And we were down there, learning and networking and not to say bringing back new trends, but it's also good, as you know, when we get to coach so many other different realtors, that sometimes you just got to get back to the basics. And one of the things I messaged you on this. Once, if I'm talking to the agents out there right now, Dylan, once a client or a potential lead goes into our system, they are typically in our system on average for 18 months before they will even do anything with you. So play the long game. It's not all about people going in tomorrow and being able to help them purchase or sell a home tomorrow. This is, you create relationships.
Yeah, and you know what I love about that is it's validating what we already know about our modern buyers. We're so much more tech savvy. We're so much more educated. You're bumping into people way earlier in the process because they're reaching out to.
Did I lose you? I might have lost Dylan there for a second, or the stream. Anyways, so he's jumping back on. I don't know what happened, Dylan. There you are.
Lost me in the middle of an amazing rant.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. I apologize. And I'm staring there blank. I'm like, I don't know if I was frozen, you were gone. I didn't know what happened there. And there's going to be people like, why is Gary just staring at me?
Yeah. Well, I don't know where you lost me there, but the point is that the modern buyer is way more educated than ever before. They're reaching out to agents earlier to gain that information, to educate themselves before they're ready. So it is more like for agents, it's about getting into relationships and helping people in the longer term. The turnover isn't quite as quick these days.
Yeah. We got lots to go through today. We got some stats that one of our close colleagues that she studies the market. And Sandra Jackson, we're going to big shout out to her, and we're going to bring up her information here, and studies the market of, because there's always a story to the numbers, and it's how we bring that back to you, our clients, and so forth. So we're going to talk about that. And today's kind of episode is all about, where are the buyers? If you're a buyer, what are you doing? And maybe more importantly, where are the sellers? Right. So let's roll the intro and kind of jump into all of this, Dylan. Beautiful. Fast intro. Okay. So as we all know, you're buying and selling real estate for your clients. Likewise, I am as well. And I know the common theme. In fact, I got a couple of phone calls this morning from some of our agents. We're having buyers kind of now take a step back and to maybe just wait because they're disappointed in the inventory levels, or they're not finding what they want. Talk to me a little bit about that, Dylan, before we bring up some of these stats.
Yeah, so same thing. I mean, that buyer fatigue is something we've been talking about for a long time now, and I feel like we're just about to make a turn there because we're seeing some more inventory coming out. We're not seeing 20 offers on every single property anymore. Like, I think the buyers are about to get a little bit of a break there. And then now we've got this conflict in the Ukraine, and we're not going to dive too deep into it. But what happens is now buyers are asking, hey, what's the uncertainty around the market and what's going on overseas? Is that something I should be concerned about? And what do you think is going to happen? Like, the amount of people that have asked me that question, even just casually, I've been surprised how much it's come up. And that's actually how we stumbled across Sandra, because she was offering some insight on a Facebook group that we're both a part of. And I messaged you and I was like, Gary, like, we got to take a look at this slide. And the point, ultimately, we need to talk about it because it's what people are asking about, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you brought it up, so let's bring it up. And we're going to bring this up right here. This is really, really interesting. So Sandra Jackson, big shout out to you, Sandra. We messaged you earlier today to ask for permission. And sure enough, not only did she say yes, Dylan, she sent us lots of other information too. So
she sure did. This is going to be the Sandra show because she offered us so much to help contribute and give back to those that are watching.
Yeah. And you can zoom in and see her contact there. She's with Royal LePage, and somebody that, you and I have watched and from afar in a sense, and she's always providing great insight and numbers and stats. And I messaged her, I said, I love stats, and in almost in capital letters, and response was, me too.
Yeah.
And so explain to us what we're seeing on screen here, Dylan, because this was what caught your attention.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're looking at is the average price growth, the average sale price through the decades going back to 1953. And how Sandra came to share this was people were asking, like, hey, what are you guys seeing what do you think is going to happen in the market now that this is happening in the Ukraine? I've had a couple buyers say, hey, maybe we're going to hold off. And Sandra shared that, historically, that those conflicts haven't made a difference in our real estate market. Right. And so we're looking at the trend lines here, and you can track back to when those conflicts were and where there was, kind of turmoil around the world. And we see that our market is always trending up, and we've got our kind of specific little dips there. And they weren't because of that. We're looking back at the 80s and 90s and, 18% interest rates. And then we're looking at the little blip there in 2017 when the foreign buyer tax came into play. And I don't even think it was so much that. I think it was the abruptness of how the government laid out those changes that really shook buyer confidence. And then what Sandra's done on here is she's put all the times where some of the senior economists were saying, hey, bubble's coming, 25% corrections coming next, 25 to 40%. And then after each one of those little stars there, you can see our market has done nothing but continue to go up.
Yeah. And there will always be economists, your neighbor, for instance. It doesn't matter who, family member, maybe even yourself. Yeah, there's going to be a correction. There's going to be a correction. Yes, there will be something, and there will always be changes in the market. And sometimes there's, there are people that, will say it louder than others, as some of these economists have gone forward and said that. And we know the old saying, a clock that doesn't work or it has a dead battery is right twice a day, right?
Yeah.
It's always important to kind of peel the onion away and just to see what's going on locally. and more importantly, making and getting information from whether it's people like Sandra or Dylan or myself or what have you, just kind of understanding what's going on in your local market. Yes, things, outside of your local market, Ontario, Canada, the Ukraine, other places, that's going to have an effect on your local market. But it's important to kind of, just take it one step at a time, and also to kind of just see, your own personal situation, right, Dylan? Like this is all, when we get stats like this, and we've said it in the past, when in doubt, zoom out. And that's what Sandra's done here. She is zoomed out tremendously.
Exactly. It gives you a great overview of what's actually happening. And this is not to discount the agents that we're talking to that are, like, we talk about the agents that are in the trenches. They're the ones with their finger on the pulse, kind of knowing what's going on in terms of buyer mentality. We have had agents that have said, my buyers are pulling back a little bit. We're just going to wait and see. But if we take a look at what that wait and see might look like over the span of 6 months, that's still nothing on this chart. So if you wait to buy a home next year, is it going to be more expensive than if you bought right now? Most likely, right? So this little window, if anything, buyers might almost want to look at it as an opportunity. Hey, there is doubt in the market. Now's my chance to purchase something while other people aren't.
Yeah.
Right. And we always say we don't got the crystal ball, but that's something, whenever we've seen a little window in terms of what's going on in the GTA housing market, those that took action on it were the ones that benefited.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're watching along with us or after and you're watching the replay, post a comment there if you have a question or so forth. We're always happy to respond. And talking about market and the market levels, let's kind of talk about what real estate industry perceives as a balanced market. And this one's always really interesting, because this is important. Another stat from Sandra. Of course, the next few stats will be from Sandra. And again, thank you. In a balanced market, what we're looking at here, and it may be tough to see, that green rectangle is typically what that means is we have 4 to 6 months worth of inventory. So there's lots of inventory to choose from for if you're a buyer, and that is what we consider a balanced market. Anything above 6 months would be a buyer's market, and of course anything below, call it 0 to 3 or 0 to 4 months, would be a seller's market. When you look at that right there, dating back to 1996, Dylan, what's that tell you?
Yeah, our poor buyer's market that we've been waiting for. You got one little window, and that was it, right?
Yeah.
And that, to me, it looks like it was the financial crisis in the US in like 08 was where we saw that little bit of blip. And it's funny, I'd been licensed at that point for 1 year. And I remember our showings on our listings was busy. And it was like somebody just turned off a tap. Our showings just stopped overnight. And it's funny to see it represented so perfectly in a graph. And also, it makes a lot of sense when you look back at the graph that we just had that was trending up in terms of average price. Well, we've been in a seller's market forever.
Yeah, exactly. If I could draw on the screen, what I would kind of show you, basically that trend line from, call it 2009, 2010, and where that trend line would go. And I bet you we'd see just a slight angle, in a sense, going up compared to your housing numbers there, for sure, the valuations. The other thing too, let's kind of put things into perspective. We're kind of hovering at, we'll say 1 month, but you and I both know it's probably less than that worth of inventory at this moment, 2 to 3 weeks. We could double our months of inventory, call it 2 to 3. We'll call it 3 weeks. Let's be cautious. Let's call it 3 weeks to 6 weeks. And we're still well below the balanced market line.
Yeah. And it's funny because even looking at that line that Sandra has on there so perfectly, it fits with what we're seeing even in our local markets of it's hovering just under that 1 month of inventory right now, right? She's done such a great job at pulling the data together, because the thing that I think that excites you and me, Gary, is when we see the data and it validates the story of what we're seeing and able to share with our clients, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I said we were going to do something here, and I didn't go get the screen capture, but I'm going to bring up this next slide, and you can talk about the year over year change. But I want to show our viewers. I was going to say listeners, but anyways, our viewers, perhaps where we're seeing some of that inventory just creep up a little bit. But I'm going to bring up this next slide here. And this is the year over year change dating back to, I love this, 1950. Sandra's gone back and pulled that research, and you can see the individual year changes there, which is pretty incredible.
And you know what's interesting about that? So you can see the when we're really in the red there, that was the 90s. That's when our interest rates were hovering around that 18, 19%, in some cases a little bit higher. And that's where you couldn't catch the market going down fast enough. That was a rough time for a lot of people. And then you see how much every year after that, there's growth. There's growth, there's growth, there's growth until what it looks like probably our 2017 little adjustment there, right? At that -4%. I'm going to assume I can't zoom in enough to see it quite clearly, but that would be where I would see the dip.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right about
Yeah.
2017. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. And then, of course, we all know where the market's gone since then,
Since
over the
then.
last little while. And
Yeah.
this,
I Before we move on from this one, I think the important thing to talk about is because a lot of buyers are asking, like, I'm gonna wait, like, when is the correction coming? Well, look at how long it's been, and we had that one little shot there in 2017, and like that's if you timed it perfectly. There was people that sat on the sidelines there and missed it. It already went back up before they had their opportunity to buy it. Like it's so challenging to time the market. The best advice is always to make sure that you're addressing what is most important to you and your family, and you're making the best decision with the information that you have. And if you had to stay in that home for 5 years or 7 years, could you do it? Right? That way you're accounting for when a down market might happen. And we can talk about the opportunities in down markets as well, but we don't want to go off the rails here.
exactly, exactly. No, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Let's save the screen captures or the inventory. What I was just talking about, the trend information, the live information to the end
Yep.
here. Let's jump into this is a stat that was that I saw from another colleague of mine on YouTube, or sorry, Facebook, and this is really interesting because we wondered where our inventory is from even the new build perspective, and this kind of highlights, the amount of homes on the MLS over the last, 7 or 8 years. And we see
Yeah.
it going down, it's going down, it's going down. And what does that mean to us from this perspective, Dylan?
Mhm. Yeah, and what's important to know here is this is across Canada. We're not just looking at the Toronto Real Estate Board now, but you can see that decline in terms of new listings that are on the market and inventory that we're seeing on the market, and we can feel that pinch. That's why we've been in these competitive sellers markets where you've got 20 people bidding on one home because there isn't enough homes for everybody, and you can see that declining. And the next slide that Gary's going to show you is going to be a great indicator as to why we're seeing it, and is also why some of those external factors, overseas and in other markets don't play an impact because there's more important numbers to look at here, Gary. I'm gonna toss this to you.
Yeah.
Looking at our population growth and then new homes built.
Yeah. Well, and you can see there, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for us. You can see here we go. Dating back to the 70s, our population growth was, 3.1 million. And now we're at 4 million, but yet new homes built in relation to that is gone down. So no wonder there's a squeeze on the real estate market because there's more people here. And as we know, as our COVID restrictions lift even today, we're going to get much more immigration into Canada, whether you're buying or renting. You still need a home to live in, right? And whether it's an apartment or what have you. And that's, we're kind of feeling it from all angles.
Yeah, we've got a lot more people coming into the country and not enough new inventory being put in, which is why you're seeing the overall inventory on the MLS systems be lower and declining as well, is because you know what? People don't move every year too. There's people that are staying in their homes, right? And so it's not like we're going to see that just because we had 100,000 new homes come on the market last year doesn't mean that we're going to see the same again next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is a shout out to my colleague, Walter Montero, who posted this image and I reached out to him. And this is all great stuff because, again, we're always talking about, Dylan, where can buyers take advantage? And usually it's, within whatever market you're in. look for the opportunity, right? And if you understand a few of the key fundamentals, like inventory rates are low because of this, or you're seeing a slight shift, and that's exactly what I'm going to bring up in just a moment here. I'm going to try and do this live on the fly. That's not what I wanted to do. This is not what I wanted to do. Hey, here's what we're going to do.
Live and on the fly.
See that. I'm going to bring Dylan on screen here too in just a second. Somewhere you are here, Dylan. And this stuff, what I'm going to show you as we see double Gare, because that's what the world needs, 2 video shots of Gare. Anyways, this is the fun stuff that we get to do while live. Here we go, Dylan. Okay, here's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to put you down here.
Let's see those numbers.
Yeah, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna see if I get my little pen tool here, and these numbers. Can you see those, Dylan, or should I zoom?
It's a little small. If you could zoom up your zoom.
There we go. Here we go. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're looking at the local area of York Region where Dylan and I both reside in, and where we primarily sell most of our homes in. And the really interesting thing here is, as we look at what's active for these, and this is this line right here, active for the current month of February versus what's sold. So we'll see in Aurora, you can see 105 homes were active, but 110 homes sold, which means there's a tremendous amount of demand in Aurora. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh,
Dylan?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
good.
It's startling to see those numbers.
Absolutely. And the next one here, as we look into East Gwillimbury, there is 72 active homes. However, here's where we're starting to see a slight change. There's 61 homes that have sold, which means there is 11 homes, in a sense, that are currently available. But another way to look at it is last month, it would have been the reverse. So we're starting to see inventory show up in some of these areas. Look at Markham here, Dylan, 371 to 311 homes. This is good. We're starting to see some inventory. Yeah, what do you got there? Exactly.
335 to 243.
There we go. Even in Stouffville, my favorite town where I live, we're starting to see that slight shift, and in Vaughan as well. All of these numbers. So we're starting to see that slight shift. Now, remember, to our earlier conversation, Dylan, we could double the amount of double the amount of weeks of inventory, yet we're still in a strong seller's market. So take it all with a grain of salt, right?
And what I love as well is, because we do a lot of transactions in Aurora Newmarket these days, is look at how competitive it still is in Aurora Newmarket. Newmarket showing 107 actives to 137 sales, and Aurora the same thing, the 105 to the 110. Still very high demand places that people are looking for, and not enough inventory.
That's right. And I'm going to zoom back out a little bit here. This is live stats from the Sean Real Estate Board, by the way. I'm going to bring this out just a little bit. Here we go. I know you can't see the locations here, but
yeah, we need this in a Google sheet so we can freeze that column.
Yeah, that's right. We can see here that as I get rid of this, our pricing is still moving up, of course, since January. And whoops, as I backed, or I can dig right. How about I dig right into it? So here, I forgot if I click that, it goes right in. And this is what we're seeing as well. There's always average price, but I like going by the median price, and this is for all of York Region. So that's a big area with a wide price range there. But as you can see, what I wanted to point out, Dylan, was the fact that in our areas, we're starting to see that inventory just I don't want to use the word catch up, add a little bit more to our buyer selection, right?
Yeah. I think the other thing to notice there is, when you just on that last screen, you were looking at average price for the year compared to average price for the month. And this current month on some of those places was a little bit lower than what it was in January, because in January, there was nothing for anybody to buy. That's where we saw some of those really tremendous sales happen, where you and I were looking and we're like, I don't know what they're basing that price off of. How did somebody arrive at that, right? And now they've set the benchmark, but because we're looking at averages, we've had more come onto the market, we've had some more sales, and we're pulling that back just a little bit from the extremes. When there was 20 offers on one property, now we're seeing 7, 5, and in some cases as low as 2.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And we're seeing more and more offer dates come and go. And again, though, it's always important to know what's going on at that current moment in time. If you're a buyer out there, and as well as if you're a seller, because I know when you and I were talking to perhaps our sellers at the beginning of February, if I can say it, our conversation is changing ever so slightly towards the end of February, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think we shared this story last time where one of our coaching clients at the brokerage saw this trend happening, didn't do an offer date, and ended up having one of the record prices on the street by just creating that urgency of, hey, come get us today. We know that there's 5 new ones with offer dates. You can buy ours without an offer date, right? And he saw that in advance. It was something that we talked about, and he's a master at kind of watching the market in that sense to take advantage of it. And that's something that's really cool, especially when you're working with some top agents in our office, to see how at such a high level that they're servicing their clients.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Beautiful. Well, that basically wraps up some of the information we wanted to bring to you today. As I said, the market is constantly evolving. And it's important that you tune into, say our Friday calls here, just to kind of get a glimpse of what's happening within the market. And we're not only going to talk about what's in the market. There's other things that Dylan and I are very well experienced in, and we're going to talk about how to add value to your home through whether it's renovations or income streams if you're an investor, and talk about some investing and so forth, and many, many other topics. So if there's something on there or out there you want us to touch on, we will do that. And if we don't have that expertise personally, we will bring in the person that does, Dylan.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We love partnering with people that can bring something to the table and give back to the people that are watching. And there's a lot of those people out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So big shout out to Walter for giving me some of the stats today. And of course, Sandra, thank you so much. We are looking forward, I know, to bringing some of that information to you from her moving forward as well. Parting words, Dylan, what do you got for us?
I don't know. Just go out and have an amazing week. That's all I can say.
Beautiful. Like he said, go out, make it an amazing week. And here's what I know. The warm weather is coming because I was just in it, and it is so good. So everyone
you were supposed to bring it back with you, Gary.
I tried. I tried
today.
I know. Nuts. Very good, my friends. Well, again, reach out to Dylan or myself if you have questions or comments. We're happy to answer them, and have a great week. We'll see everybody here next Friday. Bye for now.